Q1 2022 for Corning. Really good quarter. The earnings call, just all good news. As you can see here, sales up roughly 15%. Profit grew even more. They beat both revenue and profit. And so just a lot of great things to say. The one thing that did come up in the call, and you have to read between the lines on this kind of stuff, is the consumer again, right? I think that's just being seen across the board, probably in every earnings call right now. The consumer is weakening, and I think people are worried. The technology sector itself is not doing great. That's typically a consumer sector. But interestingly, though, the telecommunications sector is doing really good. And so Corning definitely benefits from that. But the question becomes, you know, how much longer is that going to go on? I think that when you think about consumers and just people in general, right? When money gets tight, the first thing to go is luxuries, new phones, new TVs, things of that nature. But it is important to note, though, that utilities such as telephone, lights, gas, things of that nature are going to continue to work because people need those things. And so I think that right now we're seeing this really great telecommunications sector really bubble. But I can imagine that if we do keep going down this road of recession, we'll start to see some faltering there. So again, while the Corning quarter was really good, I do expect there to be a downtrend going forward. So let's go through a couple of these slides just to look at the different segments here. First one, this is interesting. So in the past, this is a new business for them, and so they've always categorized it as other. I'm not sure if that's going to change on the financials or not, but it is something that's growing really big, 38%. They're growing, and that's just in the solar panels. The last earnings call, they talked about basically just selling as much as they can possibly make. They're still in the process of getting their inventory to where they want it to be to take care of the demand that's out there. But again, I think this is something that right now is growing really well and is doing really well. But if the consumer continues to falter, we're not going to have persons buying new solar panels, right? So they did talk about ramping up production and getting more solar panels produced in order to sell. Personally, I like to see them caution against that until we see exactly where this economy is going. Automotives, they talked about $100 per car. I don't know how they came up with that number. That seems far-fetched when you think about every car in the U.S., not to mention other countries. So I can't imagine that they took into account every car produced worldwide or within their global footprint. Maybe this is $100 per car in the U.S., but even then, that's a huge number. And even though it is true that cars are becoming more automated, we're talking about putting display screens on the windshields and things of that nature. I just don't think that is a real number. They did mention the new Jeep and one other vehicle that's coming off the line that's going to actually have I think it's the Gorilla Glass. I'm not sure. There's going to be something similar to that where it's supposed to make looking out your windshield much more clearer, right? There won't be so much glare from the sun. I think there's something there with rain, but again, $100 per car, I think is a bit much. Still a decent business. Life sciences. This is something, again, that I think has benefited a lot from COVID, and this is just the vials that the medicines or whatnot go in. And so it's a decent business, but again, I definitely see this teetering off as we come out of this frenzy around vaccines. All right, again, this just goes back to growth. They are expecting the telecommunications sector to continue to grow. And that's something that I can actually see happening because, at the end of the day, we are going to continue to create, we're going to continue to invent. That's what we do well. And with that means more data, that means faster speeds. And so Corning is really in a great position to build out the fiber optic cables and all of the things that go inside the electronics that require glass. Uh, I think that was display actually. I'm sorry. Let me talk about display. So display again is all of our phone screens, and so again, telecommunications is doing really well. But if the consumer continues to falter, there's definitely going to be less brand new phone purchases going on. They talked about the Samsung, the S22, and they talked about how their glass is not only on the front of the phone, but also on the back camera as well. So, I mean, they're doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to get their product in as many consumer electronics and products as possible. Um, but again, this 9% year over year, whatever it was, I don't think it's going to continue. That's automaker. Go through these, and of course, I put this link in the description as well. If you want to go back and look at this stuff. Yeah, that's it. So again, great quarter. Looks really good. I mean, everything in the earnings call was positive. They did talk about inflation. They did talk about their hedging strategy that they have in their Asian markets because Corning, of course, manufactures a lot of their products in Asia, and so that means that they're spending a lot of money in those Asian currencies. And there was a question from an analyst concerning what they're doing to help hedge that, because as we've seen, as the U.S. dollar increases in value, it's going to make it more expensive to purchase the labor and the goods and materials that they need in order to make their products. And I say that because again, as the dollar increases, so do some of the other currencies as well, and sometimes even faster. And so that's just going to be the case, I think, for at least the next year. But they did say that they're happy with their hedging strategy. They're not going to change anything, which, in my opinion, is not necessarily a great thing because it sounds like they're expecting things to kind of normalize at some point. And I just don't think that's going to happen, at least not for the next year or so. Um, there's one more thing just touched on hedging strategy. Well, I can't remember. It must not be that important. Anyway, great quarter.